So I'm just going to recite some verses. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم أرسلنا موسى وأخاه هارون بآياتنا وسلطان مبين إلى فرعون وملئه فاستكبروا وكانوا قوما عادين فقالوا أنؤمن لبشرين مثلنا وقومهما لنا عابدون فكذبوهما فكانوا من المهلكين ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب لعلهم يهتدون وجعلنا ابن مريم وأمه آية وآويناهما إلى ربوة ذات قرار ومعين يا أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات واعملوا صالحا إني بما تعملون عليم وأن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاتقون فتقطعوا أمرهم بينهم زبرا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون. Right. Yeah, so these are the verses from Surah Al-Muminoon, the believers, and they speak about, first off, they speak about Musa alayhi salam and how he was sent to Pharaoh with his brother Harun alayhi salam, and they told Pharaoh that he should worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone and not to take himself as God and not to take his people and Moses' people as slaves that work for him. But because Pharaoh was very arrogant, he said, how could we believe in two people, Musa and his brother, when his own people are slaves to us? So how could we follow them when they're following us? So because of this, Allah took the oppressors and Pharaoh away, and he destroyed them. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about, and then Allah says, I gave Musa the book, the Torah, and then in it there's guidance for people. So after they was saved from Pharaoh, Musa was given the book alayhi salam. And then Allah says that I made Isa alayhi salam and his mother Maryam alayhi salam, they were also signs. So like Musa and Harun, Isa and his mother were also great people, and Allah blessed them, and he made them a sign because of the miracle of what happened to Isa alayhi salam. And then Allah says, I think this is the topic today, Allah says, O prophets, eat for what is pure, what is good, and do good deeds, because I am knowledgeable of whatever you are doing. So this teaches us that that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded everyone, from all prophets, from Adam alayhi salam to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to us, that we should eat what is pure, what we call in Islam halal, permissible. And if we do this, then there is a sign in this verse that by eating good or consuming what is good, then good actions will become easy for a person. Right? And this term, you are what you eat, it does have a lot of meaning in Islam. We do believe that what you consume, you are manifesting what you are doing. So if you are consuming what is halal, what is pure, we believe worship is easy for a person. But if you are consuming something which God has made forbidden, then worship becomes very, very difficult. So I think this is the topic of the dua and the aspects of doing righteous actions, and the link to that and to what you consume in terms of what is pure and not pure.
What about the next verse?
Yeah, and then Allah says, all of you are one ummah. So talking about as humans anyway, we're all one people, and the ummah and the community of the Prophet, peace be upon him, we are all one. And Allah says, you're many, but I am one. God is one, and He is our Lord. And then God says, but they differed in themselves. Despite them being one community, each part of that community would go and be happy with what it thinks it's right, and people split over time within Muslims and within non-Muslims as well. So God's saying, I'm one, so you should be one. But unfortunately, we've differed, and we've not taken into that message. We've not learned from that message, unfortunately. So, yeah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد الفاتح لما أغلق الخاتم ما سبق ناصر الحق والحق والهادي لصراط المستقيم. Assalamu alaikum. Thanks everyone for coming. Thanks for the beautiful recitation. Apologies for the late start. We usually start early, but the prayers kind of are always changing and moving, and the days are getting longer. It's hard to keep up with things, but so basically for those who've come for the first time, we should begin with the Qur'an, and then we're studying from some of the Hadith, the sayings of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There's a collection called the 40 Hadith of Imam Nawawi, which is a collection of some of the most important sayings of the Prophet, and in each of the Hadith there's many principles and many rules, and in one of these Hadith you can have the whole religion can be summarized. So the Hadith today I was actually planning to cover more than I actually ended up preparing for, because this one Hadith is just enough on its own just to talk at a great length. I'm not going to go on, but I just wanted to focus on this one Hadith, which is it's about purity, and it's about goodness, and it's about acceptance. It's narrated by Abu Hurairah, who we talked about last time. He said that the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah the Almighty is good. Inna Allaha tayyibun wa la yaqbalu illa tayyiba. This is the first part of the Hadith, that God is good. God the Almighty is good, and He only accepts that which is good. The word used is tayyib. We're going to talk about this word. It's a very important word. First of all, it's used in the context of God, that Allah is tayyib. Okay, we have many names of Allah, many names of God, and the famous Hadith mentions 99, but that's not to restrict it to 99. Those are the names specifically mentioned in the Hadith. There's other names mentioned in the Qur'an, and some of them, and it goes out to about 150 names mentioned in the Qur'an and in the Sunnah. This is one of the names that Tayyib is not mentioned in the Qur'an, but it's mentioned here in this Hadith, that Allah is Tayyib, meaning that He is pure and free from any deficiency. He's free from any kind of flaw, any kind of deficiency is not appropriate for God. God is perfect. God is all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful. He's tayyib. There's nothing that can be attributed to Him which implies any kind of imperfection. And this is a very important part of Islam, that we reject anything which implies an imperfection to God, or even a resemblance to the creation. Some religions there's a kind of anthropomorphism which creeps in, which is like likening God to His creation. God is like a big man in the sky, or he has human attributes of that. But in Islam, there's none of that. Allah is completely flawless and completely perfect. There's another hadith that says, "Inna Allah tayyibun yuhibbut tayyib." Allah is good and He loves that which is good. Nadhifun yuhibbun nadhafa. He is pure, if you like. He loves purity and cleanliness. He is generous. He loves generosity. So these are the names and attributes of God that's the first part of the hadith. And then He only accepts that which is tayyib. He only accepts that which is good, which is wholesome, which is pure. There's a beautiful word in Arabic. This word tayyib has many connotations, but it basically meaning something which is good, which is sweet, which is pure, the Arabs say, itabat al-ard, if the earth is fertile and the earth yield fruits, and it's called tayyib, it's tabat. And in fact, Medina, the city of the Prophet ﷺ, is known as Taba and Tayyibah. Both those names was given when the Prophet ﷺ, which previously was known as Yathrib, had a kind of negative connotation, the name. When the Prophet ﷺ migrated to Medina and settled in Medina and established a community, it became a pure place. It became a beautiful place. It became even has a context of beautiful scent, طيب, and it has a context of purity. All kind of misguidance and all kinds of false beliefs were removed from that place. Even the fact, even there was like a sort of fever or a plague that would be in Medina when the Prophet ﷺ came. It left. So it became a very pure place through him. So it's known as Taba and Tayyiba as well. These are two names of the city of Medina, amongst many names. Tayyib is also perfume, which the Prophet himself loved. It's part of the Sunnah is to love beautiful smells and beautiful scents. And the angels, we're told that the angels love these scents. One of the reasons we burn incense and we burn things because it's an angelic thing. The opposite is true. So when it's an unpleasant smell, the satanic force is like that. But when there's a beautiful smell, the angels feel at home. They feel comfortable. So that's the word tayyib. The Prophet ﷺ said, I loved. He recorded as loving tayyib, loving beautiful scent, even though his own scent was beautiful. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And Sayyidah Aisha says that the Prophet ﷺ, he commanded us to build al-masajid fi dur, meaning we have a place of prayer in our homes. Build actually a masjid in your house. You don't have to actually build a whole thing with a minaret and a dome, but it means you have a place in your home that you dedicate to God. وَأَمَرَ أَن تُنَظَّفْ وَتُطَيَّبْ, and those places should be clean and smelling beautiful. And so many of the pious, they would have like a little place in their homes where they would worship God. And it's like a little masjid, a mosque of their own in their house. And the Prophet said it should be pure and clean and smelling beautiful. I used to live in Yemen, and went to visit this ancient city called Shibam. If you ever see a picture of Shibam, these huge skyscrapers made of mud, 10-story buildings, probably 3,000 years old. And went to visit the house of one of the scholars who passed away maybe 200 years ago. So there's a kind of main guest area where he'd have his gatherings, but then you go underneath, kind of go down a few level. He had this little masjid that he built in his house, and this hadith was actually written on the wall. It just had a mihrab. You see like these beautiful prayer niches, very simple but very very beautiful. So this is a place where he'd worship alone in the quiet of the night and so on. Anyway, that's another beautiful hadith I wanted to share with you on this topic is that the Prophet said sallallahu alaihi wasallam that the believer is like a bee. In مثل المؤمن كمثل النحلة. The believer is like a bee. Okay, how can a believer be compared to a bee? He said that أكلت طيبا ووضعت طيبا. This word طيب comes again. The bee only eats that which is طيب. The bee only eats that which is good. Okay, eats like nectar and eats pollen, whereas other insects they eat, the flies eat all kinds of filth and all kinds of things. But the bee only chooses the best thing to eat, and it only gives out that which is best, which is honey. طيب. There's nothing. One of the purest substances is asal, is طيب, is honey. It only eats what is طيب and gives out what is طيب, and when it lands on something, it doesn't break anything. It doesn't ruin, doesn't cause corruption, doesn't cause destruction. When it lands on the flower, on the leaf, whatever, it doesn't cause any harm. So the believer, why is the believer similar to that? Because likewise, the believer only eats that which is tayyib, only eats that which is good and wholesome, and legal and lawful. And then only comes forth, all that comes forth from the believer is good, whether it be their words or their actions or their intentions. Everything that comes is tayyib. Because they eat which is good and that which comes forth is good. And likewise, the believer doesn't cause harm and doesn't cause destruction in his or her dealings with other people. Doesn't cause corruption, doesn't cause harm, doesn't break things. And also, there's other beautiful things about the bee. It only stings when it's harmed. It doesn't actually go out to hurt anyone. It doesn't have like a bad intention. Or, hornets and wasps, they go after you, but the bees when they're only in trouble, it's like a last resort, they'll sting you, but they don't actually want to sting you. I'm not saying that wasps want to sting you, but bees have that good. And also the hard workers. There's so many comparisons you can make with the bee and the believer, and they're team workers. They all work for this common good. And another method, another metaphor that Allah uses in the Qur'an. That's the Hadith. This is the Qur'an that Allah uses that the likeness of a good word is like a tree. كلمة طيبة كشجرة طيبة. So the good word is like a good tree, and the good word that the scholars say is La ilaha illallah, is believing in the oneness of God. It's like a tree, or it's like the Qur'an as well. So this good word or this guidance is like a tree, and the believer resembles that tree. The believer resembles that tree, and Allah says that it's firmly rooted. أصلها ثابت وفرعها في السماء. The roots of this tree are firmly planted, and its branches reach up to the sky. تؤتي أكلها كل حين بإذن ربها. And it's constantly giving fruit from the permission of Lord. This tree is constantly giving goodness. Okay, so this is again like the believer, that it's tayyib. It's like a good tree which is firmly has its branches firmly planted in its faith. In Iman, let's say Iman is the branches, and Islam is Iman is the roots, and Islam is the branches. So the branches give off. You see the fruits of the faith is in the branches, and then you see the branches reflect what's the strength of the roots, and then the fruit is constantly being given, which is ihsan, which is perfection, which is doing perfecting your worship, perfecting your relationship with God, perfecting your relationship with the creation as well. So that's another beautiful metaphor using this word tayyib. That's the word tayyib, which is very important. So Allah says that He Himself is tayyib, He is good, and He is wholesome, and He is pure, and He only accepts that which is pure. So acceptance is based upon goodness. So if you want your actions to be accepted, if you want your deeds to be accepted, then it has to be tayyib, has to be good, because you have to have the highest standards for the Allah. Allah is all knowing and is perfect. So you have to try. Obviously, we don't have humans are naturally deficient, but we try and reach we try and do our best. We try and present to God the best we can. That's our mission. Whatever we present to God is the best possible, whether it be in action, whether it be in intention, whether it be words. We realize that Allah is seeing that, Allah is knowing that, so we should try and present the best to Him. We can fool creation, you can cheat, you can mask your intentions or whatever, but you can't fool God. God knows what you're thinking. Allah knows the reality of what you're doing. So what does it mean that Allah only accepts that which is tayyib? And that sounds a bit hard. It's a bit of a hard mission to fulfill, that everything has to be the best standard. It's a bit daunting that we have to, if you look at our prayers and our deeds and our fasting, and does it really measure up to what Allah is asking? Of course, it's a struggle. It's a struggle. But the acceptance has different meanings. That one is that Allah, when Allah accepts it, you're fulfilling the obligation. That by we've been told to do certain things, we perform them. Allah accepts that, meaning that we fulfill that obligation. And the higher meaning is that Allah is content with that thing, or Allah rewards you for that thing. But just because we may not be able to do our very best doesn't mean we don't do the action. We still do it, and we still hope for the acceptance from God. And they say that there's for action to be accepted, it requires certain things, such as one is, and all things we've talked about in previous lessons, in previous sessions. The first is having sincerity and having good intention. The first hadith we studied was all actions by their intentions. So if your intention is sound and you do it sincerely, then that's the first step of acceptance. And then that you do it in accordance with the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, in accordance with the teachings of the Prophet, and that was covered again in another session. And also that that you eat that which is halal, which is that your body and your what you've taken in is lawful and is pure. Because as you said, you are what you eat, and what you take in, you'll then have an impact on what you give out and what you emanate and what you do. So the hadith said that the Prophet said that the one who earns money from a haram source and then gives it in charity, it will not be accepted from them. You can't. Two wrongs don't make a right. So you can't take money you can't steal some money and then give it in charity, because it's not come from a pure source in itself. So it can't then become pure just by you giving it. Another point here is that we've heard these verses being recited. The Prophet mentioned these verses in the Hadith, that he said that Allah commanded the believers to do the same thing that He commanded the messengers to do, the prophets and the messengers. That we heard the verse, O you messengers, eat of the good things and perform righteous deeds. So our kind of role models and our examples are the prophets, and they've been told to do the best, and so we try and follow in their footsteps. كُلُوا مِنَ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَاعْمَلُوا صَالِحًا. Again, eat from that which is good, and then your actions will be good, will be righteous. But also in that there's a nice there's a permission as well to eat from which is tayyib. We've given permission to eat from the good things in this life, to enjoy the good things in this life. It's not like Islam is moderation. It's not excessive monasticism. We're not asked to leave everything. We can enjoy the pleasures of life. You can enjoy good things, good food, good drink. You can enjoy good things. But there's only a few things which we've been told to avoid, and all that's for our own good and for our own health and our own safety. So this excessive monasticism is not really part of the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. And the famous story when 3 men came and they asked the wives of the Prophet about his actions, about his kind of private life, and they said, one of them said that I pray all night. I don't sleep all night. I spend my whole night in prayer. The other one said that every day I fast. I never eat. And the third one said that I vowed never to marry. I'm going to live a life of celibacy. And the Prophet, when he heard this, he said, no, this is not my way. This is my way is in the middle. That I eat. I fast some days and I eat some days. I pray in the night and I sleep in the night. And I marry. I have wives. I have relations. I have relations with women. So this is, and the one who leaves my sunnah is not from me. The one who goes against that. So there's a permission there to eat from the good things. And the Prophet ﷺ, he spent many a day, tying a stone to his stomach out of hunger. But at the same time, when food came and when gifts came and beautiful perfume came, and clothing came, he enjoyed it. So there's not about rejection of those things, but what's required is not to be, your heart's not attached to those things excessively. You can enjoy them and have them. When they come, they're there. When they're there, they're there. When they're gone, they're gone. And the Prophet ﷺ made that choice to be hungry one day and to be patient, and then to eat the next day and to be grateful. So there's a beautiful balance and an equilibrium there. But to go back to the what we're saying, that everything should be, what we eat should be tayyib. The next verse, the Prophet also mentioned the second verse, you believe, eat of the lawful things that we provided for you. Eat from the tayyib. Kulu ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kulu min tayyibati ma razaqnakum. So that we should make that attempt to that we eat from that which is tayyib, and consume that which is tayyib, and that we give, everything we give should be tayyib. Allah said that you will not attain piety until you give from that which you love. In other words, if you want to give something in charity or offer something, then offer the best you can. And another verse that he said that he says again, consume from the good things and so on. Then he said that don't seek out things, don't find the worst kind of thing and then give it in charity. Don't give your worst in charity, things that you wouldn't accept yourself. That's not real charity. Charity is giving the best you can. But and then he says that the hadith says that the acceptance is through which is tayyib, which is pure. So one of the greatest means of acceptance is for your food to be halal, to be tayyib. And also there's two things here, that halal and tayyib are mentioned often together in the Qur'an. Halal and tayyib, but they're two separate things. Halal is that which is lawful, but tayyib is something which is wholesome, and something something can be halal and not be tayyib. Okay, something can be halal and not be tayyib. It can be legally fine. It's got the halal stamp on it, if you like. It's slaughtered in the right way. But is it actually tayyib? Is it something pure? Is it wholesome? Is it been treated? Is it animal? Or if it's an animal, has it been treated properly? Has it been respected? Has it been slaughtered in the correct way? Has it been honored? So this comes again. This halal and tayyib in the Qur'an. This halal is one thing and tayyib is something else. That it can be halal and but beyond that it should be tayyib. So you're not satisfied with just being halal, but you want something which is pure and wholesome. And there's many verses that talk about this concept. There's verses that talk about what is in Surah Al-Ma'idah, the verses talk about that which is prohibited, and then there's a verse, يَسْأَلُونَكَ مَاذَا أُحِلَّ لَهُمْ قُلْ أُحِلَّ لَهُمْ لَكُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ. They ask you what is permissible for them, and they say that which is permissible is that which is tayyib. Okay, so so there's another concept that the halal in itself is tayyib. That Allah wouldn't have made something legal if it wasn't pure, if it wasn't wholesome, it wasn't good for us. And everything which has been forbidden for us is khabith, is the opposite of tayyib. It's unwholesome, it's detrimental to your health, and more importantly, it's detrimental to your physical state and your physical heart. Okay, that's why it's been forbidden. That's why it's forbidden. It's for your own good. And one of as we last week mentioned as well, that what the Prophet's mission is described, يُحِلُّ لَهُمُ الطَّيِّبَاتِ وَيُحَرِّمُ عَلَيْهِمُ الْخَبَائِثِ. When the Prophet is described in the Qur'an, his mission is to make that which is tayyib halal. He make legal that which is pure and wholesome, and forbid that which is unwholesome, which is detrimental. So and that relates to our state today, that we have a lot of people are concerned with ethical consumption, ethical eating. And this is an Islamic concept. That it should be tayyib. It's not enough that it's just be legal, but it also should be. There shouldn't be any harm in the production of that food or in the agriculture. Okay, so avoid companies that are actively engaged in destructive environmental practices, exploitation of the farm workers, or disregard for animal welfare. The pesticides that they use. Farm workers they're constantly suffering the effects of the pesticides that they're using, and that's just in food, not to mention all the other industrial problems that we have. So when you purchase something, has it come from a good source? It maybe it's fine, it's legally, it's fine, it's halal. Allah's made the vast majority of things halal, but is it tayyib? Is there exploitation in that? Has it come from? Is it fair trade? Has it been fairly produced? How are the workers treated? How's the environment treated? It's something you have to be aware of, because again, that will affect your spiritual state. If there's some wrong, some dhulm, some darkness in the word for dhulm in Arabic, the word for oppression in Arabic is also related to the word for darkness. So there might be some darkness getting into you, even though it's halal, but it's because there's been some oppression in that, oppression of humans, oppression of animals, oppression of the earth, that will have an effect on your state, effect on your heart. So we do our best to try and obviously the food industry doesn't want to let you know where it's come from or what it's or the processes, they do their best to make it hard to trace. But obviously, as things develop, there's much more conscious awareness of these kind of things. So maybe outwardly maybe halal, but is it tayyib? Our clothes, where are they produced? How's the labour and the sweatshops and so on? Is it the governments that there's many issues there, but it's something that comes into this whole meaning of whether it's tayyib. And it's also like we don't know whether a lot of our food, we don't know where it comes from. It might have come 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles to get to our plate. Whereas there's this famous story of Sayyidina Ali bin Abi Talib, the Prophet's son-in-law. He was the leader of the army at the time, and the army was eating meat and having a feast, and he was just eating some dried bread, some crusty bread. And they said, "Why are you doing that?" He said, I know where this was grown. I know the person who farmed this. I know the person who harvested it. I know the water where it came from. I know the person that then milled it. I know the bread. I know the wood. I know where the wood came from that kind of baked it. For the fire that baked it. I know the person that kneaded it and baked it. So, and I know exactly where this bread has come from. As for that stuff, I don't know. It's fine. It's halal. You can have it. But as for me, I only choose that which is best. And that's why he had that great spiritual state, and partly for that reason. So that's the concept of tayyib, of what's tayyib. And the final part of the hadith, the Prophet said that the Prophet mentioned a man who was he's travelled a long way. He had a long journey, and he was all dishevelled from his journey, covered in dust and dishevelled. And today we just kind of cruise from place to place and through airports and everything's. But in those days, a journey was a serious affair. So this person's dusted and dishevelled, and he was coming after this long journey. He's raising his hands to the heavens, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, calling upon his Lord, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. But then the Prophet said that in spite of that, his food is from a haram source, and his drink is from a haram source, and his clothing is haram. So all that he has is from an unlawful source. So how can even all the nourishment that he's had is unlawful? So how will God then answer his prayers? He's asking, but how will it be answered if that's his state? So outwardly he's done all the right things, but what is preventing his prayers from being answered is his nourishment, basically, and his clothing, and the source of all those things. So this brings us on to the topic of dua, of prayer, of supplication. It's one of the kind of essences of our relationship with Allah, is how we call upon Him. Dua is a call. When we say dua in Arabic, it's a call, it's an address. It's how we relate to our Lord. Allah says in the Qur'an, قَالَ رَبَّكُمْ أَدْعُونِي أَسْتَجِبْ لَكُمْ. Allah says, call upon me and I will respond. So there's always a guarantee of a response from God, whatever happens, whatever our state. And the other verse, إِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ أُجِيبُ دَعْوَةَ دَاعِ إِذَا دَعَانِ. When my slaves ask me about me, then say that I'm qareeb, that I'm close. And that's when they came, they asked the Prophet about that. Allah said to them, say that I'm close, qareeb. It's one of the beautiful names of God. He's a qareeb. He is close. He is near. He is not physically, but he's near in the sense that he's all aware and all listening and all hearing and all knowing. And he responds to the call of the one who calls upon him. He responds to the prayers of those who call upon him. And in a hadith, the Prophet said that dua huwa al-ibadah, that our worship, the kind of expression of our worship, of our slavehood for God, is in dua. That we Allah knows what our needs are. Allah knows what our state is. Allah knows what we're asking for before we ask it. But it's part of our expression of our servanthood, is to ask Him. To express our need, to sit and say, this is what I'm going through, this is what I need, this is my state. That's part of our relationship with Him. So this is the concept of dua, and one of the means for our dua to be answered is for our to have a halal, to have a lawful, to have a legal, to have a sound, wholesome food intake and everything else, all kind of income is all halal. That's one of the, and one of the companions said, he said, Ya Rasulullah, make me pray that I be someone whose prayer is answered. Make me one of those people whose prayer answered. Whatever I ask, it's immediately answered by God. And the Prophet said, very simply said that make your أطعم طعامك يستجاب دعوتك. That if you make your food طيب, then your dua will be answered. So don't worry about, if you focus on that thing, everything else will be taken care of. If your food is tayyib, if your income is tayyib, is good, then you will be someone whose dua is answered. And he obviously took that advice and became someone whose prayers was always answered. This in Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. So again, this is if our prayers to be answered, it's about this concept of purity and things being from the right source. Just in closing, we mentioned some of the etiquettes of prayer, of dua. There's many etiquettes of dua, and some of them are alluded to in this hadith. The first is having humility. This man, he outwardly had all the right things for his prayer to be answered. That he was dishevelled and he was pleading with God. So humility is the first thing, that someone you kind of lower yourself and have that conversation with God, and realize your neediness and your want and your absolute need. And the Prophet ﷺ, actually there was a time when there'd be drought. There's a special prayer you pray, the rain prayer. So they still pray this to this day in the countries where rain is scarce. So that they actually have a rain prayer. They go out, and the Prophet ﷺ will go out for the rain prayer. Go out in kind of dishevelled clothes or poor clothes to show his kind of humility in front of God. That we're going out, we're pleading for your mercy, and rain is a manifestation of rahmah, of mercy, of ghaith, of relief. So when the Prophet ﷺ went out for the rain prayer, he'd go out in his kind of dishevelled clothes or kind of poor clothes, simple clothes. Another thing is for the heart to be present. That when you're asking, your heart is focused. Just sometimes we get, as Muslims, we learn sort of du'as and it becomes like a habit. We might learn in Arabic and we just repeat it. Your heart's not even there. It'd be better for you to ask in a language that you understand and God understands anyway. But it's nice. It's beautiful to learn the du'as, and we should learn the du'as of the Qur'an and the Sunnah. But sometimes what's more important is the heart. If the heart's there, and there was the Prophet ﷺ was once making tawaf, making around the Kaaba, and he had making these beautiful du'as, and there was a Bedouin behind him listening. And he said, I can't match these beautiful du'as that you make and these beautiful prayers that you make. So the Prophet said, what is it you ask for? And he said, all I ask for is that I ask for Allah's pleasure and for paradise. He said, everything we've been asking for has been revolving around that one thing that you asked for. All these beautiful du'as and prayers is expressing what you just asked for. Rida wal Jannah. The pleasure of Allah and paradise. To raising your hands is one of the etiquettes of dua, and it's mentioned here in this hadith. He raised his hands, raising your hands to the heavens, not because Allah is in the heavens, but it's just a symbol of your poverty and of your need. And the hadith says that God is shy if someone raises their hands to turn that person away empty-handed. Being in a state of purity, being in a state of wudu, tahara, there's another good thing to have. It's not essential. It's not essential. For prayer, you have to be in purity in wudu and tahara, but not for dua. But it's better to be in that state. It's better to be in that state all the time. Facing the qibla, the best direction is to face Makkah. So you're making a dua. And then begin with the praise of God. Alhamdulillah, praise of God. And then and also bestowing prayers upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The dua is accepted through the means of that prayer upon the Prophet. When we say Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad, and durud, I call it. That's a means for your prayer to be accepted, because Allah never rejects blessing. When we ask for blessings to be bestowed on the Prophet, Allah doesn't reject that. So if we begin with blessings on the Prophet and end with that, then Allah will not reject that which is between the two things. Another thing is to be persistent. Don't just say I prayed, I asked, and God He didn't answer my prayers. He didn't listen to me. You just keep asking. Some people, they say Allah loves people that consistently ask Him. As humans, we get tired. Someone asks you once, twice, you get irritated by that person. But Allah loves to be constantly to be asked. He doesn't get tired of that person. And sometimes He delays what He's giving to hear that person ask, to hear that person plead with Him. And the Prophet said that your dua will be answered as long as you don't rush. As long as you don't rush to see the results, you'll be answered. And so if you're constantly pleading and remain patient, the dua will come. And there's another hadith that says that you'll always get something. Either you'll get what you asked for in the short term, or some calamity will be relieved from you, or you'll be saved up for the next life. You'll see the results of your du'as in the next life. You didn't get what you wanted in this life, but you'll get something better in the next life. And at that point, you'll wish that none of your prayers were answered in this life. If only I just saved it all up for the next life. When you see what's awaiting for you, sometimes we want something, but just I have to have this thing, and actually it's not in your interest. It's not, and Allah delays it, or Allah gives you something better. So sometimes it's about taslim. It's about submission. Another etiquette is say Ya Rab. In this hadith, he says Ya Rab, Ya Rab. This is you call upon God by saying, my Lord, Ya Rab. The Rab is the one who nourishes, who cherishes, who takes care of you. So when the one who says Ya Rab 4 times, Allah will then respond. You'll bake. Allah will respond immediately. Whatever you want, I'll ask and you'll be given. That's a hadith. So when you say Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Rab. And there's also states and times when du'as are more likely to be answered. Prayers are more likely to be answered. The first is in this hadith, the traveller. The prayer of the traveller is accepted. Okay, the traveller is in difficulty and hardship, so their prayer is answered. So this person was in that state. Also, the prayer of the oppressed. Someone who's being oppressed, their prayer, Allah hears their prayers, even if they're not Muslim. Allah knows there's a right. Those people have been wronged. So Allah is just. Allah listens to their prayers, and Allah justice will be done. And the prayer of a parent for their child. So if you're in difficulty, ask your mother or your father to pray for you, and that prayer will not be rejected. There's other times and places such as in prostration. The closest someone can be to God is in sujood, is in prostration, and that's a good time to ask. When you put your head on the floor and ask, and there's a beautiful, you feel closer in that state. You're in a complete state of submission, and that's the time to ask. After every prayer as well, so it's recommended to ask, to make dua. In the last part of the night, the thuluth al-akhir min al-layl, the last part of the night, is a time when prayers are answered. The time before dawn, before Fajr, If you have a real need, if a pressing need, then wake up at that time and ask. And obviously now it's getting harder now as the nights get shorter and the days get longer. In winter it's very easy to wake up at that time. But they say that the prayers of the night are like arrows that never miss their target, when you pray at that time. Between the adhan and the iqamah, so we have the call to prayer, the adhan, and then there's a gap before the actual, what's called the iqamah is called, when the actual prayer is about to start. It might be a few minutes, it might be longer. So in that time, the prayers are answered. In that blessed time between the adhan and the iqamah. Between when rain falls. so in Scotland, our prayers are always answered. in Arabia, it's a rare thing. So you really do feel like the mercy is descending, and you raise your arms. But in fact, one of my friends, he told one of his teachers, he was in Syria, he told one of his teachers about Scotland, and he said, there must be so many pious people because the rain is constantly, so much mercy and so much goodness descending in Scotland. So inshallah. Also Friday, which is tomorrow, Friday. Jummah is a blessed day. There's a Prophet said there's a time on Jummah when no one asks except it's given, and one of the secrets is that it's not like it's a hidden. It's not. The Prophet didn't say when it was. So there's many different opinions when it is. One of the strongest opinions is it's the last part of the day, just before Maghrib, just before sunset. And so the Fatima Zahra, the daughter of the Prophet, she would spend that last hour or last time in prayer and in pleading with God at that last time before sunset on Friday. But there's other opinions. It's almost like it's hidden, so you spend the whole. Throughout the day, you're hoping that your dua will be answered. So you spread that dua out throughout the day. Arafah, of course, the day of Arafah, Ashiyat Arafah. It's a day of great mercy, not just for the people on Arafah, but for everyone. There's an immense outpouring of mercy on the day of Arafah, the 9th of Dhul Hijjah. So whether you're on Arafah itself or like most people you're somewhere else, the dua is answered and mercy descends. Laylatul Qadr, of course, in Ramadan, and every night in Ramadan, every moment in Ramadan, but specifically the night of power, the night of greatness, du'as are answered. When you break your fast, the Prophet said that every fasting person has a prayer that's answered. So when you break your fast, whether it be in Ramadan, whether it be any time of the year, the first thing you should do is to make du'a and ask, because those du'as are answered. And finally, when you pray for your brother or sister in their absence, you pray for someone, you mention someone, you think about someone, you pray for them, that dua is answered. And the angel says, give that person the same. So you pray for, may you give so and so such and such a thing. You will receive the same thing. Your prayer will be answered, and you will receive the same thing, same prayer. So really, you're actually praying for yourself. You're praying for someone else, and that prayer will be answered. But you're praying you're also kind of taking care of yourself. So that's kind of just a summary of some of the states and etiquettes of dua. It's like a very fundamental part of our relationship with God, and the more you have that time with God, and that there's that conversation with God, and that's what nurtures and nourishes your religion, basically. So that's brings us to the end of the hadith, which began talking about that which is pure, and that Allah only accepts that which is pure, and then that this person's prayers, although he had everything right, his prayer was not answered because of his clothing and his food and his nourishment not being pure. So inshallah, that's what I want to say on that topic, and may Allah inshallah give us purity inwardly and outwardly, pure income and pure provision and pure, that we give, what we give out is pure, what we take in is pure, what we give out is pure in our words and our deeds and our intentions, and we be like the bee that only eats that which is pure and gives out which is pure and doesn't harm, doesn't cause any destruction. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Any comments or questions or reflection? Floor's open, inshallah.
There was one story, a scholar, I don't know if you might have heard of this. There was an Egyptian scholar who was visiting a friend, and his friend brought him a cup of water, and he asked him, where did you get this water from? Was it from the well you dug up, or the pipes that the government put in? Because he knew the government would be using interest to build those pipes. So if he said the pipes, he would say, just take it back, I don't want it. if it's from the well, it's much more pure, he would take it. So yeah, people had consciousness back then about what they used to consume.
It's very hard, isn't it, to like you say, trace back.
I know, it's,
consume, you know.
Yeah,
it's a lot tougher now.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's all different levels of it as well. Cause you can think it's like you were saying, there's different levels of halal and purity. Yeah, so you could think, well, this is halal. Now, very well, it is halal, but maybe it's not as pure as it could be. And you can check things. You get used to doing things, and so in shops you think, well, that's a vegetarian option, so you'll take that. But sometimes when you actually look at it, you can make sort of deeper choices. So I suppose it's just as you develop your knowledge and your understanding and your ethics, then you sort of become more selective as you go along. So you'd be like the Egyptian, where did the water come from? So and even things like encouraging you to cook food from scratch, because then you know where all your produce had come to, and you're putting it together. And if you're going to ask and laugh for blessings in your food as you're making it, it's like it's a purer form of food than just buying a processed meal, that's already made. So you tend to, as best as you can, you're making, where things have come from, as much as possible, and so you're making things for yourself. But it's quite easy to get lazy, and then you might see something and you pull yourself a wee bit and you check a wee bit, and you might stop taking something that you were taking before, and doesn't necessarily mean to say that what you were doing before was totally wrong, but what you're doing is much better.
And it's really true what Amin was saying, buy fair trade, buy organic. That's just one way of trying to get things that have been produced in an ethical way, and especially locally grown, not something. Sometimes you go in the supermarket and looking at the veg and pick up something and it was grown in Kenya, and you think, oh my word, how much it's cost to bring it here, and all the air miles and all the pollution. And so I never ever buy stuff I only buy stuff that's locally grown, even if that cuts down your choices a bit, but it's still, and that's what we used to do. At one time you didn't get vegetables that were grown in Mexico and place like that. You just bought what grew in its season.
There's a lot more to think about, I think, when you're making your choices.
I suppose it's like if you sit down to a dinner that someone's made for you, especially for you, so they've pulled everything together, they've got all the ingredients together, and they've made it, and you really enjoy it. I mean, you appreciate it because of the effort it's gone into it and what's going on. So it's a bit like Allah sort of providing things for us. It's there to be enjoyed. But it's if He's given us so much sort of goodness in the world, take that goodness and not rely on something that you don't really know how it came about. So just thinking you'll enjoy it a lot more. It's like we're talking. It's like when you break your fast. So Ramadan's a good example. So when you've been fasting all day and you're sitting in the masjid or in your house and you break your fast, I mean, it's such a marvellous. You make the dua before it and you thank Allah for everything. But it's such a blessed meal in itself.
Make good choices.
Make good choices, and people in Ramadan try to do things even better than they do normally. So there's a special effort. So you're sitting down to a really good meal, in halal terms. But it is something special, that you partake of for the month of Ramadan. Inshallah.
That's true.
But this is a really important topic, isn't it? Because it kind of brings it home to us that Islam isn't just religious practices. And spiritual, which we really, really need, but it comes into every area of life, and particularly these things like the welfare of animals that are used for food, the welfare of farm workers, the way we look after the environment, with chemicals or preferably avoiding chemicals. So all these are very practical things, but they're a really important part of our Islam and our worship of Allah. So it's really good to
definitely creates an awareness, doesn't it, for those things.
We've been given the stewardship, the khilafah of the earth. So it's like we're responsible for how we cultivate it, how we deal with it, how we build upon it. Everything is like a responsibility. It's like a trust, and we'll be asked about what we did and how we cultivated and how we did it. So it's a huge spiritual responsibility, as you said. This is also, it has a practical implication.
But I think we believe that the closer somebody can become to God and the more he remembers Him, there's always a radar in the heart which kind of distinguishes what is pure and what is not pure.
Mm-hmm.
So even without the food, if you have to write something and you find a pen on a table, because if you're always remembrance of God, you wouldn't use that pen if it wasn't yours, even if no one was there.
Mm-hmm.
Just in the consciousness that you're using something which is you've not been given permission to.
Mm-hmm.
But if somebody is heedless and doesn't have that consciousness of God with him,
Mm-hmm.
he wouldn't think twice about it. So it's about food, but about everything really.
Yeah.
That you only use what you're allowed to. So. And there's definitely a link between the violence in human beings at the moment with the fact that we eat animals, which are this factory of
red meat,
farms just killing animals and the horrible things that happen to them,
Mm-hmm.
and we're consuming that, and that's going to have an effect on our own behaviour.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I suppose even going to eat things like genetically modified food.
Mm-hmm.
So the man's used his intellect to try and come up with solutions, but there's really solutions for profit. And that's why some big businesses push them. But it's food that's not natural. So most people, I mean, even outside of Islam, when you talk about things like genetically modified food, most people, that think about what they're doing, would maybe take a step away from that, because it's been altered, it's not natural, and that would seem to fit in with the way that Allah likes us to do things. He gives us things for us to use, not to create for ourselves. That's what He gives us.
And the more harmful things we eat, the less pure they are. We'll not be supplicating to God. We'll feel that distance.
Mm-hmm.
And this person, because he's humble, his heart opened up to asking. And the Prophet said that he didn't say he will not be answered, because everything he's consumed in his life is wrong. But the Prophet said it's not like he won't be answered, but how could he expect to be answered when everything he's done is wrong? So.
Will you say that if we have a shortfall in our ethics, we can't source our food so it's tayyib or excellent, that at least our intention is putting forward something for us? Would you say that that's true, or is our intention cancelled out if we're eating things that are not ethically grown, not ethically sourced, sweatshops, as you say, and it's so wide these days. It's very difficult to find anything that's not been tainted by man's sin, if you like.
Yeah, I think everything's tainted to some degree, and the whole system is, usury and riba, everything's in the whole system. And you just, your intention is good, and the effort you make to try and research what you're what you're consuming. It doesn't have to go to, to become an obsession. Like you can't, every single piece of fruit you have to kind of, but you do your best, according to the time and the ability you have. And it said that the one who, in a sense, you're consuming these things whether you like it or not. But the one who consumes it and cries is not the same as the one who consumes it and doesn't care. The one who's aware that you're in the system and you're in the banks and you can't get away from the, even on banking, like this used to be more kind of ethical options. Even those banks have almost all closed down if you look now. And the banks that are the main banks are all doing like selling arms and they're really shady kind of stuff. So. But the person who's aware of that and doing their best to choose if the better option, the lesser of the two evils, or is aware of that, it's different from someone who couldn't care less, who kind of,
Yeah.
And you're judged according to that intention and the will to want to be better.
I think your analogy of the bee is very excellent.
It's not mine. It's prophetic, you see. But it's a beautiful analogy. There's a whole surah in the Qur'an, there's a whole chapter called the bee, the Nahl, Surah Al-Nahl. Allah says that from that bee comes forth يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلف ألوانه فيه شفاء للناس. Allah describes it comes from the bee, this beautiful liquid of different colours and types, which is in it there's shifa, in it there is healing. So the Prophet himself said that honey has, the Qur'an itself says, and the Prophet himself said as well, that the shifa in honey, and again medical, modern research has shown that to be the case.
It's something I've heard a few people talk about, how honey has health-giving properties, but when the honey comes from sugar-fed bees,
Exactly.
and when none of the actual pollen goes into the honey, it loses its health-giving properties, and apart from the sugars, natural sugars in honey, it's actually the pollen from the plant that adds complete dietary requirements. And you can buy naturally sourced pollen grains that come straight from the bee's leg. They have a little grill on the hive so that it's taken off as the bee goes in. Or they get a certain amount to use for their own needs. And it's actually the pollen itself that contains well, as I say, every single element that the human body needs is contained within bee pollen. So buying a jar of honey that's maybe very cheap, or you're not really too sure if it's the best or the worst, that it is something to be very careful about with honey, I believe. But it costs a lot
Well, it costs a lot. The proper honey is.
Having said that, Scottish heather honey, they're usually about £5 a jar, and the aroma that comes from it is excellent. And I think it also contains a lot of the pollen and minerals, so on. So personally, I wouldn't just use any kind of honey.
I think, purity is such a powerful thing in Islam, and that's what attracts a lot of people to Islam in the first place, the purity of it. So even things, it's like before you pray, before you do certain things, it's like you wash, you perform ablutions, in order to be pure, and it's purification of your heart, it's purification of everything that's round about you. It's such a central part to the attraction of Islam in itself. It's again, this is Brother Abduladeem is saying, it's like the closer you get to Allah, the more you want to become even purer. So it's a continual cleansing process, which is really good.
Because for the pen analogy, because if you use a pen that's not yours, this is a very kind of high level kind of, if you use that pen, that relationship with God is going to be cut a bit because you've done something against him. So this is just level of consciousness that the Hadith is talking about. What you earn, what you eat, all these things affect the relationship with God.
You made a point as well that remind me as well that one of the fact that you're asking is a sign that Allah has inspired you to ask in the first place. So and that comes from the purity. When the heart is pure, then the inspiration comes. The angelic, and a lot of it's angelic. The angels put that inspiration in, but the fact you've been given the ability to ask is a sign that Allah wants you to. He wouldn't have given you that. And if He didn't want, then you wouldn't have that inspiration to ask. So it's important. And that comes from the purity of the heart. When you have one good intention, one good action, it leads to something else. And this is again the angelic kind of encouragement that's coming. So if you do one good thing, then the angel. An angel is kind of inspiring you to do something good, and you do it, and then it passes you on to another angel, and it continues. The inspiration carries on. And the opposite is true. If you do something wrong, then there's that demonic, shaitanic kind of thing which encourages you to do worse and carry on down that slippery slope.
Because prayer has a dua, you're asking, has a different effect than any other, I think, types of worship. Because you're talking your own language. It's not fixed like prayer. You're not following certain rules. And you're free to express yourself. And that's why the Quran verse says that I say everything I'm worried about. I tell God, like the Hadith in the Mashkuvathi, everything that I worry about, I just tell God everything. Right? So it has that personal effect, and it has an amazing effect on the heart, and the relationship with God. That I don't think, personally, any other type of worship has.
It has been scientifically proven that it was an experiment done in Edinburgh actually about 20 years ago, that groups of people who worked in hospitals on all different levels, they were divided into two groups of patients. It was what you call a double-blind clinical research. Nobody knew who was what and who was praying for who. So one group prayed for a certain group and the other group didn't pray for anybody, and it turned out that the group that were prayed for, that their health came back better, and they survived, so on. And it was put forward as an evidence that prayer has a direct effect.
I was just wondering, I missed the Qur'an because I had to go and get the water, and Jude and Fergus had to come from work. So do you think we've got time just to recite the verses again?
Yeah, sure.
Just tell us about it. Alright, so we don't miss it again.
It's beautiful. Well, you can just recite all day. It's beautiful.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ثم أرسلنا من بعدهم موسى وأخاه هارون بآياتنا وسلطان مبين إلى فرعون وملئه فاستكبروا وكانوا قوما عادين فقالوا أنؤمن لبشرين مثلنا وقومهما لنا عابدون فكذبوهما فكانوا من المغرقين ولقد آتينا موسى الكتاب لعلهم يهتدون وجعلنا ابن مريم وأمه آية وآويناهما إلى ربوة ذات قرار ومعين يا أيها الرسل كلوا من الطيبات واعملوا صالحا إني بما تعملون عليم وأن هذه أمتكم أمة واحدة وأنا ربكم فاتقون فتقطعوا أمرهم بينهم زبرا كل حزب بما لديهم فرحون.
You can do the next few words. Next one is like 3 or 4 verses.
فذرهم في غمرتهم حتى حين أيحسبون أن ما نمدهم به من مال وبنين نسارع لهم في الخيرات بل لا يشعرون.
Do you want to just, so we don't miss out, tell us about them? Did you do that at the beginning?
So they were started talking about Musa alayhi salam and his son Aaron alayhi salam. They were sent to Pharaoh, and they were told, Pharaoh was told, Pharaoh was told that you should worship God alone, that don't take yourself God and tell others to worship you. You should submit yourself to the one God and let the children of Israel free and don't enslave them. But God said that he was arrogant. He said to his people, how could we believe in two people, Musa and his brother, when his people are slaves to us? How could we ever obey them? So God said, because they rejected, we drowned them in the sea, when the sea came down and they were drowned. And then God says that we made Jesus, the son of Maryam, he was made a sign with his mother, and they were taken care of, and God kind of, when he was a baby and when Maryam had to eat from the tree, God kind of took care of that situation. God mentions that he gave Musa the Torah after Pharaoh and as a guidance to people. And then this verse came, O prophets, eat what is pure, and then do good deeds, because I know everything that you are doing. And then God says that all of you are just one community, and I am your Lord, I am one, so worship me. But God says, but everyone decided to go their own ways, and people have differed, and everybody thinks they're right, and claims that they're on the truth, rather than being united in one thing. Yeah. I've not researched all the verses, but that's I always tell people that come to Annandale Mosque, non-Muslims, I say to them at the end, even if you don't believe in God, you should at least do one thing in your life which is pure and sincere. Right? Anything that only you know about and God knows about, and don't tell anybody else. And just hope maybe on the day of judgment, if there was a God and that God turned out true. I say once you do that, just make a supplication. Say, God, if you are true, if these people are right, then accept this from me and save me if there is a day of judgment. And God says that any one atom worth of good will never be wasted. So I always tell people, even if you don't believe in God, at least do something which is sincere enough that if there was a day of judgment, that it might be good enough, for your Saviour. So I think I need to go.
You gotta go.
Is there just the connection between purity and doing the good actions as well?
Yeah.
From what you're saying, yeah. So the purer you are in what you're doing, the better result of the actions that you do. Yeah. Sounds good.
And your heart will be inclined to doing that. Okay.
Thanks for coming, everyone.
Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We haven't decided when the next.